Welcome everybody to the fourth session of the 2022 Mercy Care Connections Conference. My name is Laura Poinkowski, and I am the Office of Individual and Family Affairs Administrator at Mercy Care.
Hi, my name is Matthew Kelly. I'm from Mercy Care's Housing Department, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll be reading both the bios for Pat and Missy. So Pat is the founder of Pat Deegan Associates. For over 30 years, Pat has been a thought leader and disruptive innovator in the field of behavioral health recovery. Pat founded a company run by and for people in recovery. The mission of that company is to safeguard human dignity by bringing individual voice and choice to the center of clinical care team. Toward this end, she developed Pat Deegan's recovery approach that includes the award-winning Common Ground software, medication empowerment, the online recovery library, the Common Ground Academy for peers and practitioners, and the Hearing Distressing Voices simulation. Since 2009, Pat has worked as a consultant helping to develop and evolve the On Track New York model for coordinated specialty care teams for young folks experiencing early psychosis. Pat is also an activist in the disability rights movement and has lived in her own journey of recovery after being diagnosed with schizophrenia as a teenager. She has held a number of academic appointments, has numerous publications, and has carried the message of hope for recovery to audiences around the world. She received her doctorate in clinical psychology from Duquesne University. As PDA's Director of Content and Program Development, Missy has the opportunity to work with customers all around the world, providing coaching, technical assistance, and support. She works with the team to develop content and training materials used to support everyone using Pat Deegan's recovery approach. Missy has used Common Ground and Pat's recovery approach in her own work as a psych rehab practitioner for many years and has seen firsthand the impact it has had on providers and service users, bringing them together to work more collaboratively and amplifying the voice of the user. Pat, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I definitely cannot see you, but I do believe you're out there. And I'll tell you, since the pandemic has changed the way we all work so very much, I am finding that speaking into the void is okay. I mean, it's not the same as being live, and I wish I could really be with you in person today. But I think it's sometimes cracks me up. It's kind of funny that I'll be up here and I'll be cracking jokes and talking, and my partner downstairs, Deborah, she she can hear me going on and on, but of course she can't know that there's an audience, or it just sounds like I'm carrying on upstairs here. But I do believe you're there, and it's a privilege to have an opportunity to speak with you today. I'm hoping that most of you were able to come to the keynote on Monday, because in that keynote I was able to talk about my journey of recovery, and something that has been essential in that journey of recovery is this notion of activation, this notion that there is a very big difference between being clinically restored to baseline, if you will. That's a restoration narrative. It's not a recovery narrative. A recovery narrative is really about taking the struggling human being, the struggling self, and placing that self at the core of the story. And that story, as we collect these recovery narratives, I've collected hundreds over the years, really is about this idea that which I thought was going to destroy me, in fact, couldn't destroy me, and that I was able to make this important passage in my life, and I'm transformed by it, and I come through the other side changed, and perhaps different in really great ways, but certainly it's not a story of returning to who I used to be necessarily. Recovery really is a very transformative journey. And so, as I said, I've been looking at how people recover over time, particularly people who are diagnosed like I was with a serious mental illness, how folks recover and move towards and ultimately get to the life that they want for themselves. And one thing that I know for sure is that treatment alone doesn't work. In fact, when I think about it, and I think about these hundreds of first-person accounts that I've collected and videotaped and analyzed over all of these years, It's never really been, when I talk to people about their recovery, a story of, oh gosh, it was those amazing DBT skills that my therapist had, or oh gosh, it was this amazing, you know, medication that it's typically not that story. It more is a story of a human connection that I hit a really difficult period in my life, and somebody was able to reach across and touch me in a way that made me feel like I mattered, right? It's an interesting thing. Now, it's not that DBT and medication and all of our extraordinary treatment techniques and approaches aren't important, because I truly believe that they are, and they can be of immense help. But there's something that comes prior to that, and that something is our human connection. And that's why in the mission statement of my small but mighty company here at Pat Deegan and Associates, we really take seriously the idea that there is, as a very first step in every bit of the work we do, finding the common ground of our shared humanity, finding that place where I'm human and the person I'm meeting is a human being. And from that encounter comes an extraordinary energy and hope for being able to partner in such a way that we can help you get to the life that you want. And so this topic of personal medicine is not new. I've been working on it since about 2000, in the early 2000s, and publishing about it. We have personal medicine coaches all over the world, quite literally. We have coaches in Israel and in South Korea and all over Australia and, the UK and, pretty much everywhere but South America. In any case, it's spreading, and it's spreading for a good reason, because personal medicine is the other half of the equation. Yes, psychiatric meds can help, but personal medicine also really matters. These are the things I do to get well and to be well, right? So what I do can be medicine as well. And it took me a while, and in the context of a research study, to learn this. And I want to open by sharing that story with you. And so I do that now. Okay, the power of personal medicine. So let's start with the question, what is medicine, right? And I think if you're like most people, at least those of us in the Western world, what comes to mind are pills. When we think about medicine, we think about pharmaceuticals. In fact, in our culture, medicine and pharmaceuticals are practically interchangeable words. And so way back in 2000, a person named Charlie Rapp, who was the head of the Department of Social Work at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas, asked me, Pat, what would you like to do? We'd like to partner with you on some research efforts. What would you like to work on? And I'm, by the way, beaming out to you from Massachusetts, which is my home state. So back here in Massachusetts, I said to Charlie, well, I'd really like to study the question of how people use psychiatric medicine in their recovery. And I said, because I really don't think we're ever going to successfully transform mental health systems to a recovery orientation unless we also transform the way that psychiatric care providers work with people around medications. Okay, and so we set up a qualitative study, and I set up an interview with 30 people across the state of Kansas. And these 30 folks had all been diagnosed with a serious mental illness and had made their recovery and were living lives that were very different, very individual, and very unique. And honestly, it was a wonderful year where I got to travel around the state a lot and got to meet lots of these folks who were in recovery. And I had a 1 hour interview format that I did with them, but a fairly open-ended, unstructured interview that I worked with. And my goal was to collect these interviews and then to conduct a qualitative thematic analysis of them and publish my findings. And I was interested, what would I learn? And it was really interesting because people, I think I was doing my first 5 or 6 interviews. And for the first, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, people would tell me I took this medication and then this. And they would talk to me about pill medicine, right? They'd talk to me about pharmaceuticals and the impact they had on their recovery, right? Which is what I expected. But instead of going on about that for the full hour, people then diverted and started telling me about 101 other things that were great about their lives, or that they were doing in their lives, or that were important to their recovery. So people would move from talking about their experience with pharmaceuticals to then talking about their lives, talking about my children, talking about my work, talking about my pets. And I was baffled, honestly. I didn't understand why. But my training, is such that I let the phenomena speak to me in its own words, in its own way, and so I don't try to structure it. And so I scratched my head and just continued on. And then I think I got to the 6th or 7th interview, and I was outside of Wichita, Kansas, in a very rural little town, and I was in a farmhouse there. And this amazing person named, we'll call him Joe, I got to meet. And Joe was an individual who had been in mental health services for many, many years. And he had been diagnosed around late teens with bipolar disorder. And he was living in recovery at this time in his life. And he was continuing to use mental health services, and in particular, he had a therapist, and he also worked with a psychiatrist with whom he had a very good relationship. And here's what Joe said to me that kind of just was a turning point in my understanding of what was going on in this research. Joe said, I think there's a lot of other things that's medication that's maybe not considered medication. There's things that you can do that does change what your body does, and it may not be medicine. I still think one of the best mood stabilizers there is in life, maybe not for everyone, but for me, is math. Wow. Wow. At first, I sort of did a double take. Personally speaking, math might put me right over the edge, but for him, it's working as a mood stabilizer. What a powerful statement. So I said to Joe, tell me more. What do you mean here? What is it? He said, well, I still have periods of time when it gets tough to sleep. And he says, I know if that goes on too long, that there's a chance that I might move into mania. And he said, and I don't want to go there. And he said, so my psychiatrist and I worked out that I would have a sleeper med, a med that would help me sleep through the night. And I have that as a PRN. It's a pill in my pocket, and I got it if I need it, he said. And I said, okay, I understand that. And he said, but what I figured out, he said, was that if I sit right here at the kitchen table and I do complex math problems, and he took out this book and he showed me this book that he works in, he said, that's medicine too for me. And I said, oh, in what way and how does it help? And he told me that what happens is that when he is working on these math problems, he begins to, he only does these when he feels like, he called it his hypomania train is pulling into town. And what he does is he does these math problems, and it helps him feel competent. It gives him a sense of mastery, like I can do this. I have a very good mind. I can tackle these difficult problems. I can even solve them. And that means that I am not going to get swept away, that I am a competent person, that I can accomplish these difficult things, and I have a very good mind. But mostly, he said, it gets me grounded and it helps me understand that I'm still in control. Wow. So in those early stages where he was having trouble sleeping and hypomania was setting in, yes, he used the psychiatric medicine, sure, the sleeper, but he also used this very unusual strategy. And I said to Joe, hey, did you share this with your therapist or with your psychiatrist? And he said, no, I've never told them. He said, they've never asked me. And I said, wow, that's something that this came from you, right, Joe? I mean, this was your idea. And he said, absolutely, that doing math problems was completely his idea. And so this strategy of math as a mood stabilizer was something that Joe was able to discover for himself. And the reason this is so important is because it helps us to understand that within Joe, and I would argue within all human beings, there is a natural resilience. Within Joe, there is a natural self-righting capacity. That within Joe, there is an inner resilience, there is a healer within. And that Joe didn't always have to look outside himself for the answers. He didn't always have to look to the professionals to direct his life or his strategies for wellness. That these strategies for wellness emerged spontaneously for Joe. And that not only were these strategies effective, but they ultimately kept him from relapsing into mania. And so for me, the big take home is that we are resilient, and that those of us who've been diagnosed with a serious mental illness, whether that is bipolar disorder or whether it is a psychosis spectrum disorder, that actually human resilience does not end at diagnosis. We have a natural self-righting capacity. And I think too often the mental health system forgets this, that those of us who are coming for services are not broken in any absolute sense, and therefore we don't need to be fixed, right, by an expert. That really is a restoration. My expertise will restore you to the life you once had. That is a restoration story, not a recovery narrative. A recovery narrative is a narrative about resilience. And in Joe's case, how he used the treatment strategy of the PRN with the psychiatrist, and he used what he was learning in therapy. He used them, and he used his own resilience and his own know-how and discovered math as a mood stabilizer for him. And again, I think it's concerning to me that mental health and behavioral health services often act like human resilience terminates at the point of engagement in treatment services. And in a recovery-oriented approach, quite the opposite is needed, which is to partner with the individual who is resilient. And it's only by finding and connecting with the resilient human being that is in the room across our desk when we're meeting with someone from therapy, or through Zoom if we're meeting with them in remote care, that only by connecting with that individual can we find our recovery partner. And that's a bit of why personal medicine is so critically important as a practice in behavioral health. Now, I think this word resilience is a little bit opaque at times. So let me just give you, I'm a very visual person if you haven't um, picked up on that. And really, I think of resilience as the hull of a ship. And I really think that Viking ships are incredibly beautiful. The hull of a Viking ship. And the hull of a Viking ship is crafted in such a way that when a wave comes, the boat is meant to tip, but it's also meant to self-right. So think of it metaphorically in a sense, a visual metaphor that, oh, here comes the wave of adolescence. For some of us, it was more like a tsunami of adolescence, right? We tip and we self-right. We tip and we self-right. And here comes the wave of young adulthood and marriage and relationship and work. We tip and we self-right, right? And so that's really how I think of the power of human resilience. And personal medicine is a practice that helps us view, to stay out of the trap of viewing people as broken and in need of fixing, okay? And instead help us focus on finding our recovery partner and developing that partnership to co-create health together. And so some people say, well, you know, Pat, this idea of personal medicine, it's a really good metaphor. And it's like, no, 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 I'm very literal. I'm very, very serious. I'm not just talking in a nice metaphor here. Personal medicine is medicine. And that's because many things can change our biochemistry, right? So certainly pharmaceuticals can change our biochemistry, right? But so can't love. And so can't laughter. Laughter can change our biochemistry. I mean, I can almost see this little girl's change, her biochemistry changing as she's in the arms of her dad. She's quieting down, she's changing, right? Love can do that. Embrace can do that. Touching can do that. But other things can do it too. For instance, exercise has been shown to have a very large effect size, for instance, when compared with pharmaceutical antidepressants such as SSRIs, right? Many things can change our biochemistry. And therefore, what I do can also be medicine. What I do can also be medicine. And what I like about this idea and some of the power in it for me says that, well, medicine, because it can be what we do, helps us to get in touch with an older and more cultural understanding of medicine. Now, when I say that personal medicine is in fact medicine, I just want to, put a caveat out there, which is that I am, and I'm very clear in this work, that personal medicines are not what we take, right? So if I come up with some fabulous concoction of NyQuil with a little St. John's wort thrown in, and boy, does that help me get to sleep at night. Medicine is not what we take. So nicotine, and using nicotine to get calmed down when I'm anxious is not personal medicine. Likewise, eating vegan, although it may be good for us, is not medicine because eating is about consuming. Preparing a nutritious vegan meal and the act of selecting the ingredients and preparing it to bring pleasure to myself and perhaps to my loved ones or friends, wow, what powerful medicine, right? That can be powerful medicine. So personal medicines are what we do. And it helps us to connect to, and in a sense, to reclaim this idea of medicine in a very powerful way. That yes, pharmaceuticals can be part of my self-care strategies, but you know what? My personal medicine and personal medicines are too. And so I think that personal medicine connects us with older times, more ancient times, when there was a more cultural understanding of what medicine was, when medicine healing, sickness, suffering, really was the stuff of interpersonal care, and practiced like at the level of a village or a tribe or a spiritual community. And so this reclaiming of the word medicine, I think, is powerful because it reminds us that, yes, laughter sometimes is the best medicine for certain people under certain circumstances. Or we talk about this healing power of love. And that's really, as I began to reflect on Joe's words to me, what the gift that Joe gave me was this plethora of an understanding, what I was discovering. And I was like, this is why people, when talking to me about psych meds in their recovery, did tell me about psych meds in their recovery and then veered off to telling me all the other things that had meaning and gave their lives purpose and that they did to get well and to stay well. So here's my definition, first published in 2005 in a peer-reviewed journal of personal medicine. I say that personal medicine are self-initiated, non-pharmaceutical, self-care strategies that serve to give us meaning and purpose in life, and that help diminish distress. Okay, so this is Simon, and you can see Simon's got a beautiful pup. Simon struggles with major depressive disorder, and he's been working for years with a psychiatrist to find a balanced medication regimen that allows him to have energy during the day. But equally important, Simon's one of his most important personal medicines is caring for his dog. Okay, well, how is this medicine? How can Simon's personal medicine be caring for a dog? Well, first off, Simon has to get out of bed in the morning, and it's one of the biggest challenges of his day, jump-starting, moving from that resting sleep place into activity, right? And so for Simon, being able to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning is key to his recovery from depression, right? And that he had to work with his psychiatric care provider in order to make sure that the pharmaceutical medications that he was taking were not so sedating that it prevented him from using his personal medicine, which is getting up in the morning to get the dog out. And not only that, but once out of bed and up and out, Simon takes the dog for a walk. And the walk actually works as another form of personal medicine. Walking my dog is powerful personal medicine, Simon says, because it helps to connect me to the rest of my community. In other words, when he's out walking his dogs, people in the city are out on the stoops in his neighborhood, and they check in with you. How are you doing, Simon? What's up, right? And he's a shy, kind of retiring guy, but being able to connect with the community in this way is very powerful. And the beautiful thing is we can support Simon in not only finding his initial personal medicines, but expanding upon them over time. Now, one of the things I found in my research is, yes, personal medicine very often are these big things, that the reason to get out of bed in the morning, my purpose. And certainly that's true for Simon with his dog, but sometimes personal medicines are also the smaller things that we do that help us get well and stay well. So, for instance, this woman, Vivian, right, is a trauma survivor and also a survivor of domestic violence. Today, she's living independently in a more rural kind of community. And for her, working in the garden helps her feel connected to nature and get grounded when she's starting to slide into unwanted memories and thoughts, and when she's starting to perhaps even have a flashback. Now, one of the things that's very powerful for Vivian is that as a trauma survivor, she sort of had this very fatalistic viewpoint that everything I do turns bad and ugly. There's nothing pure about me. I'm dirty and everything I touch withers. You know, just a generalized, just sort of low feeling about herself, right? And when we talked about her personal medicine, Vivian told me, you know, it was extraordinary for her because when she could plant something with her hands in the dirt and have something beautiful emerge from it, it was this extraordinary experience of her self being good, nurturing, being able to bring forth life. And it had very powerful effect on her well-being, and was a way to counteract some of that internal self-talk. And I think that that's a great example of personal medicine being about sometimes these smaller things like gardening that we can do. Right?
We have a question in the chat, and it's about strategies to help patients that can inspire them to come up with their own self-care strategies. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, we sure do. I mean, Missy's going to instruct us in just a bit on how to support people in discovering their personal medicine. And we have a worksheet that lays out that heuristic and how to make sure that it's truly powerful personal medicine by applying some fidelity rules. So we're going to go over that in just a few moments, but it's a great question. I don't think we expect people to do it entirely unsupported necessarily. So I just want to point out that personal medicine is disruptive and it does transform our practice in really positive ways. So we're taking this idea and we're disrupting this idea that medicine is only a pill, and we're saying medicine can be what I do, not what I take, but what I do. In maintenance and stabilization kinds of behavioral health systems, we see that the individual feels like, well, I'm the problem, I'm broken, I need to be fixed. But in a personal medicine system, a recovery-oriented system, that message is transformed. No, you're part of the solution. You're not the problem. Of course, we're disrupting the idea that healthcare is a commodity that can be delivered. And we're saying, no, healthcare is co-created. So first we meet on the common ground of our shared humanity. Together we engage our recovery partner, and we begin to move forward by co-creating wellness. People in systems often feel like I'm sick, but the personal medicine paradigm helps us move towards, no, I'm resilient, I have a healer within. In the system, there's a very strong emphasis on take your meds. But I would argue the emphasis needs to be on find the balance between your pill medicine and your personal medicine. As I mentioned, we do have research on personal medicine, and essentially what we've found over a number of years, is that use of personal medicine increases over time. So when we're working with somebody to discover their personal medicine and to cultivate it, that people will continue to add to their personal medicine over time. That use of personal medicine increases activation in self-care as measured by the patient activation measure. And as we know, activation in self-care is associated with improved health outcomes, which is a win-win-win all the way around. So we know that personal medicine is not just a good idea, it also really works. And I just want to point out, and I think it's important, that personal medicine does support recovery-oriented practice. It does have an evidence base. It does show this activation, which leads to more robust health outcomes. But also the practice of personal medicine is something that peer specialists, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, case managers, rehab specialists, and even families can get involved in, right? Because it meets SAMHSA's criteria for recovery-based practice and the core competencies of peer support as well. So to reinforce this just a little bit, I want to give you an example, of the role that personal medicine can play in real life scenarios. And the first is my own story, right? In the keynote address yesterday, I talked about how I eventually stumbled into the power of self-care, or what eventually I would come to call personal medicine. And so again, I'm a visual person. I like visual metaphors. Ninjio Kuluk TV is an artist from the Baffin Island collective, and made this. I find this a beautiful, beautiful piece that she did, and I use her visual metaphor with her permission. She calls this visual metaphor the owl and the boy. So there I am, 17 years old, senior in high school. Psychosis comes into my life, and it comes into my life not just in one swoop, but it made multiple passes, coming closer and closer and closer. And eventually my experience was of being swept away. I began to hear distressing voices that I had no idea that I could do anything about. No one ever told me there was anything I could do about it. And instead, I became engulfed by these voices, engulfed by what the professionals were calling delusions, and engulfed by the fear and the anxiety of early psychosis. I was swept away, and you can see how small I am in relation to the white owl, the snowy owl, which symbolizes, of course, psychosis or schizophrenia, if you like. Eventually, and over time, my psychiatrist said, this is a disease, it's called schizophrenia, and you're going to be sick for the rest of your life. It's a chronic condition, and you need to take high-dose antipsychotics for the rest of your life, and that you really need to work hard on avoiding stress. And in the beginning, I found that message very difficult, and it really was caused me a tremendous amount of anguish and despair. But one thing that it did do, is help me realize, or give me a name for this thing that I was going through. And it seems like if you can name something, it helps you manage it, or get a sense of, okay, it has a name, it's confined. And so this picture kind of represents that. So this thing called schizophrenia, it's outside of me. It can swoop in and get me. If I take these medicines, it might take me away again, but it might not. I'm at least a little bit protected. And so there was this sense of, okay, it's big, it's really big. I have no control over it, but at least it has a name. And that there was some solace in that. But then, as I talked about in my keynote address, I slowly became activated. I realized that using a Sony Walkman, an analog personal music device with a headset, portable, what an amazing thing that was. Because I discovered that when I was hearing distressing voices and I put that headset on, guess what? I had a different experience of the voices. There was something I did to these all-knowing, all-powerful, all-seeing voices, something I did that actually allowed me to switch my focus just a bit to the music that I appreciated. I had never heard this. This was completely mind-boggling to me. In my entire time, in those early years of the mental health system, no one ever said, Miss Deegan, there are things that you can do to help yourself. It was never mentioned. So I'd like you to ask yourself, at what point in your care pathway, in your relationship with people, are you asking, what do you already know how to do that helps, right? At what point are we introducing people to this idea that there are things you can do that will affect your experience of distress, right? And so you see in this image, I'm getting a little bigger in relation to the owl. And over time, my self-care skills, or now I would call it my personal medicine, increased more and more and more until I am where I'm at today. And as you can see, I've got my owl on my sweatshirt now. And this is symbolizing that I don't see schizophrenia as some big, awful thing that could swoop into my life and take me away. I know too much. I'm too skilled. My recovery has evolved in such a way that I can embrace psychosis and hold it as my own and recognize that there are some aspects of it that I wouldn't trade for the world, and some just make me the unique, never to be repeated gift that I am, and that you are. I still hear distressing voices. I still have to practice self-care every single day. I have to use my personal medicine every single day in order to be in the life that I want to live. Okay. And so it's not ancient history for me. And that's important. And I think that this visual metaphor trip that we just took kind of gives you a visual sense of, yeah, we've got to become bigger in relation to that which is distressing us. And that's exactly what personal medicine does. Okay. Helps to give us the self-efficacy that we need and the confidence that we need to be able to manage in unique and novel and sometimes rather extraordinary ways with adversity, with difficulty, with symptoms, right? So here's a couple of classics. I do a lot of clinical consulting with the on-track clinical teams and around working with young people with early psychosis. And one of the traps that I see teams get into is forgetting that the person that they're working with is a recovery partner, that they're not broken, they don't need to be fixed, but what we really do need to do is to engage our recovery partner. And the way we do that is, I think, importantly to ask, what do you already know how to do that helps? Very important question, right? And already, just by doing that, and I say to people doing crisis care, this is the first question. What do you already know how to do? I don't care if you're in an emergency room. What do you already know how to do that helps? Because people do something. You don't just sit around getting passively afflicted. Nothing bothers me more than hearing, oh, the mentally ill are afflicted. No, we're not. We're actively adapting and trying to manage difficult and challenging situations. We're like other human beings. We are at work, right? We are goal-directed. So yes, I may be screaming and hooting and hollering at my voices, right? But guess what? That's adaptive for some people. You know why it's adaptive? Because when I can get activated and raise my voice, okay, I'm releasing tension. For some, that's how it works. And I'm able to assert, I am here, voices, listen to me, okay? Now, I get that it's socially maybe not the coolest thing and bothering the neighbors. I understand that. But let's remember that the people, even in crisis situations, are using adaptive behavior in order to try to manage the situation. So this is Zane. I remember interviewing him, a young guy, early psychosis. He says, I'm not working. I just go to the program every day and then come back home and I get into bed. I don't really do anything. I just go to my doctor and he tweaks my meds. And I said, you said the medication has to be adjusted just right in order to be able to move ahead? And Zane says, yeah, because I have a chemical imbalance and it has to be balanced right. Well, in my opinion, Zane hasn't started his recovery journey yet. Okay, he's busy tweaking meds and trying to balance his biochemistry, and he hasn't learned to do anything. He hasn't discovered his personal medicine yet. He's not activated. He hasn't discovered that in relation to his owl, he can grow and in his self-efficacy and in his confidence. So here's the trap that he's in. He's saying, I have a biochemical brain imbalance that needs to be balanced. And so every month I go to a psychiatrist who prescribes meds to balance my brain biochemistry. And then I go home and wait for my biochemistry to get balanced. The meds don't work. I get even more depressed. So I go back to my psychiatrist who tweaks my medication because I have a biochemical brain imbalance. And frankly, this is not working. This is a scenario of passivity. And recovery is anything but passivity. So how do we intervene? Well, here. Then I go home and wait for my biochemistry to get balanced. That's the place where an intervention using personal medicine with Zane could help him on his path to activation. Finding the right balance between any psychiatric medicine we may take and our personal medicine opens up pathways into the life that we want. So Zane says, and eventually did discover personal medicine. And his beginning personal medicine was on a good day, skateboarding downtown, helps me focus and forget my problems for a minute. And on a rough day, taking a long shower helps me get out of bed. Let's look at another common example. This is Jew. And I met Jew in a large mental health center, and she'd been coming to the programming that they have at the mental health center for lots and lots of decades. She'd been a mental health client for a very long time, again, diagnosed with with schizophrenia. And she just sat down with me and we began talking, and I offered to help her discover personal medicine. And those were in the early days when I was just trying to figure out what it was. And she said, no, I don't have anything like that. I just take my pills like I'm supposed to take. And she was that very pleasant person, a nice person, but the staff knew her and had known her for a very long time. And she was just like a fixture at the mental health system, you know? So I dropped the personal medicine stuff, and we just got to talking. And I asked her a little bit about, what she does. And she started by saying her usual stuff, which is nothing. I don't do anything. I don't have a job. I don't go to church. I don't do anything. And I said, what do you got in your wallet? Do you have any pictures in your wallet? And she said, yeah, I do. I said, would you be willing to show me? And she said, sure. She got this big, big smile on her face. And this was who was in her wallet, her grandson, right? And the change in her was palpable. And I said, tell me about this, you little guy. And she told me how taking care of my grandson makes me happy, and it helps my daughter go to work so she doesn't have to pay for daycare. Okay. And so we had to connect her time with her grandson with how it supported her in terms of feeling needed and wanted when her voices told her she was no good. And bingo, we were on to personal medicine. And you know when you've hit personal medicine with somebody because you see them change right before your eyes. You see them change. And I tell you, people, everybody has personal medicine. I have not met a person yet that we can't support in finding personal medicine, even if it's a small thing, right? Sometimes it's just rolling out of bed and getting in that warm shower. Okay, but that helps me get my day started. So, and one of the reasons that personal medicine can be so healing is because we don't just hand a worksheets to somebody. We don't just say, here, do this. We don't just ask people, what's your personal medicine, but we really take the time to say, where did that come from within you, Jew? How did you know this? And she said the most amazing thing. Her eyes welled up with tears, mine did too. She said, I never thought anything good could come from me. I thought I was crazy. And this was a life-changing experience for Jew, that she realized that, oh my gosh, something good, something powerful, something healing came from within me. And if I continue to cultivate that, I can even learn more of my personal medicines so that I can get closer to the life that I want to live. All right. So on that note, Missy?
I was going to say, just let everyone know if they do have a question, they can take their, use the raised hand feature or put it in the chat real quick. And if not, we'll move on to Missy.
So hi, everybody. So I'm going to spend the last few minutes of our talk just going through, some of you asked, how do we do this? How do we support people in finding their personal medicine? How do we help people to discover some of those strategies? And so I'm going to share some thoughts with you on that process today. And as you learned yesterday, hopefully, this is something that, we're partnering with Mercy Care to help spread personal medicine and certified personal medicine coaching throughout all of your organizations. And so this is just kind of your first sneak peek. But I want to start with a really short animated video that we made here. Pat just shared so much beautiful information about where personal medicine came from and how it's grown and developed over time. And we've taken kind of all of that knowledge and put it into this little tiny video to really kind of highlight the power of personal medicine, and just to kind of help you all start thinking of ways you can start having some conversations with people and using that really basic question of, what do you already know how to do that helps?
it is such a powerful question, and it is a question that so many folks don't have asked of them. So I just want to start with this quick video.
The power of personal medicine. Many of us use meds to support us in living a great life. The most important thing to know is that meds can be helpful, but they're not magical. It's best not to lie back and to wait for the meds to cure us. That's not how they work. We have an important part to play in our healing too. So imagine I have a broken leg. I go to the hospital and the doctor sets the broken bone and puts a cast on my leg. In a few months, I return to the doctor, the cast is removed and my leg is better. Now ask, did the doctor heal my broken leg? Well, when you think about it carefully, the answer is no. The doctor did not heal my leg. In order for the healing to occur, my doctor and I had to work together to create the optimal conditions under which my leg could heal. Of course, the doctor set the bone and created a cast to hold the bone in place. But that was not enough. I had to actively participate in the healing too. I had to be careful not to get the cast wet, and I had to learn to use crutches so as to not put too much weight on the mending bone. Well, just like a cast can't heal a broken leg, psychiatric meds can't do all the work of getting us through our mental health challenges. Meds can help us achieve our goals, but we also have to get actively involved. Ask yourself, what do I do to feel better and how does it help me? You might discover gardening takes my mind off my troubles and helps me connect to nature. So the next time troubles are wearing you down, you might say, oh yeah, now would be a good time to spend some time in my garden. Did you notice that no one had to tell you to do this? That wisdom came from within you. We don't always have to look outside of ourselves for the answers. Let's do another. Ask yourself, what do I do to feel better and how does it help me? You might discover that fishing calms you down when you're stressed, or that playing guitar helps you express your feelings when you're too nervous to talk, or that reading spiritual books brings you peace and helps you feel less anxious. All of these are examples of personal medicine. Personal medicine comes from the wisdom within us. It's unique to each of us, and we can have many types of personal medicine. Personal medicine is what we do. Psychiatric medicine is what we take. Using psychiatric meds and personal medicine together is a pathway through mental health challenges into the life we want for ourselves. And that's the real magic.
So I really love that, the simplicity of that video, the way it highlights and makes that connection between the things that we do for ourselves and how we actively get involved in the process. As Pat said, we all have personal medicine. We do not have to have a mental health diagnosis to have personal medicine. And every single person who is on this call with us today, you all have personal medicine, whether you know it or not. As do the folks that you're supporting through their recovery process. And so one of the tools that we developed, and that is in your handouts, is our personal medicine worksheet. So I'm going to go through this with you all and talk about how it is to be used. And just reminding you all that while we love worksheets here at Pat Deegan and Associates, these are just tools. They help us to have conversations with people. We never want to hand worksheets to people and be like, here, fill this out and bring it back next week. It's really about the conversations that the questions on the worksheet can really get started. And as I said, if you even just start with what do you already know how to do that helps, it's a great place to start. It's a really wonderful place to start with folks. So the worksheet is a 2-page worksheet, and I'll get into, you know, how much or how little of it you want to use. A couple things about it. The worksheet is available in English and Spanish, and those are available in your downloads. The worksheets are also form fillable. So if you are working in a telehealth setting, you can pull it up on a screen, you can email it to somebody, they can type right into it. You can type right into it as you're discussing with them, whatever works best. So if you're a paper pencil person, you can print it out and use it that way. Or if you need to use an electronic version, that's also form fillable as well. And we found that to be really helpful, especially during the pandemic, as everybody had to make that shift into telehealth, which was totally new territory for most of us in the mental health world. So let's take a look at the worksheet. So really simple, right? So kind of all the things we've been talking about, the top of the worksheet really just provides a short explanation. It can really help to have that conversation with folks, talking about the definition of personal medicine, those things that we do to get well and to stay well. It provides a few examples because examples are always helpful when it's something new to folks, right? So saying, hey, you know, did you know that playing the saxophone can help someone control their breathing as well as reduce anxiety? That's personal medicine. Spending time with my kids helps me feel needed and loved and helps me to keep me out of the hospital. That's powerful personal medicine. The next little section, I want to make sure that I highlight with you all, because we say that in order for personal medicine to be as powerful as possible, it should meet 4 criteria. And that is that personal medicine is a specific activity. It's not a feeling or a state of being. We want to see that a person has that specific activity that they're doing. The second thing is that personal medicine is something that we do. It's not something like a medication, herbal medicines like tobacco, alcohol. It's not something that we take. So personal medicine comes from within us. Anything external that we're taking into our bodies, not that it's a bad thing, not that it's wrong. It's just not personal medicine, because we're trying to highlight the value and the inner wisdom that each person has by saying it comes from within me. It's not something that I'm taking from outside and putting into my body. The third point is that personal medicine needs to be something we do now in our lives, not a future goal. So perhaps, you know, you're working with somebody and they're in the hospital and they say, oh, when I get out of the hospital, I'm going to go swimming at the local gym. That's a great goal. But we want folks to have access to their personal medicine now. Not that they have to do it right now at this moment, but they have to be able to have access to it when they want to use it. So it's something I do now, not a future goal. And then finally, you know, personal medicine is very different from generic coping skills. And one of the biggest differences is that personal medicine includes how it helps us. So we have 100 and some people on this call today, and I bet a whole bunch of you also like to listen to music as your personal medicine, but you like different kinds of music, or you listen to music at different times, and it helps you in different ways, and it helps me. And that is what is so powerful about personal medicine, and makes that distinction between that generic coping skill or coping strategy. And it's personal, how it helps me, and it comes from within me. So those are some important things, and I'm going to show you on the worksheet how you can support yourselves when you're using the worksheet for yourself, and if you're talking with others about personal medicine, how to make it as powerful as possible. So the rest of the worksheet is broken up into 3 what we call cards. This is the first one, and folks you all can do all of them. You can do one of them. You can pick and choose, because again, it's not about filling out the worksheet. It's about exploring for ourselves and discovering our personal medicine. So as you see in the center, there's a fold line. So if you're a paper pencil person and you want to print this out and create your card and carry it with you, it's a really great way to have a reminder. So we say there's a front and a back. The front is the left side, the back is the right side. And it starts with a really basic question to get you thinking. What do I do to feel better, and how does it help me? So for me, one of my many personal medicines is walking my dog after work, and it helps me to unwind from a busy day and clear my head. Really simple, right? Simple, easy, not too hard to figure out. But the next step is my personal medicine powerful? So that's those 4 questions that I just reflected on prior to this. And so we actually have those listed on the worksheet because they can really help us to think more deeply. Is this personal medicine as powerful as it can be? So again, is walking my dog after work a specific activity, not a feeling or state of being? We can say, yes, that's a specific activity. Is it something I do now, not a future goal? Yes, it's something I can do. I can access it at any time. Technically, I do it after work, but sometimes I use it other times. Is it something I do, not something I take? Yep, absolutely. And does it say how it helps me? And again, yes, it does. It helps me to unwind from a busy day and clear my head. Now, that being said, maybe I didn't say how it helps me, and I just say, well, walking my dog after work, that's my personal medicine. And that's something that you'll probably hear folks say a lot, and that's totally fine. But we really want to help people hone in on, how does it help me? So just walking my dog after work doesn't say how it helps me. So it's by definition not as powerful as it could be. Not that it's wrong, but we just want to help folks and help ourselves to make our personal medicine as powerful as it can possibly be. So bringing in that helps me unwind from a busy day and clear my head, that is makes my personal medicine as powerful as possible. So on the back of your card are just a couple of questions to help with planning. And this is so, so important in my mind. I've worked with people using personal medicine for a very long time. And for a very long time, all I did was say, hey, what's your personal medicine? Or hey, what do you do to feel better? And we would talk about it and they would tell me, and I'd be like, great, go do that. But what I have learned is that when we can really spend the time to help people personalize and make a plan for their personal medicine, they are so much more likely to use it and find it helpful, and then it activates them and continues to help them move forward in their recovery. So there's a couple questions on the back of the page that you can, when you're doing this for yourself, think about how you can use your personal medicine. So this first question is a little bit tricky for some people, and it's, what challenge will this personal medicine help me with? And so, as I already said, personal medicine of walking my dog helps me to unwind and clear my head. So it definitely helps me with my anxiety, but there are other challenges in my life as well that it helps me with, and that is helping me to manage my blood pressure. So years ago, my blood pressure was high. I was really stressed all the time. I had gained a bunch of weight, and so my doctor wanted to put me on blood pressure medicine. And I really didn't want to do that. And so we talked about other things that I could do to help my blood pressure, and walking and getting exercise is one of the things that also helps me to manage my blood pressure. So my blood pressure is good. I've lost some weight. I'm still active and using my personal medicine. The thing I like about this question is it can help us support people in recognizing other areas that the things that we're doing might help. So it might not just be a mental health challenge. It could help us with our physical health. It can help us with our spiritual health. It can help us with our social health, financial health. Personal medicine can help us with any area of our life. The next question is really important. When am I going to use my personal medicine? And helping people think through when they're going to use it. So for me, after work each day, and whenever I'm feeling extra stress or anxiety. I know I can say, hey, walking is my personal medicine, whether with my dog or not. If I'm feeling stressed and anxious, I can say I need to go take a break, go use my personal medicine, and go take a walk. And then finally, who am I going to share it with? And this is really important too, right? Some people like to keep it themselves, and that's okay. But the more folks can share their personal medicine with their loved ones, their supporters, their team, the more that we can all help them to engage with it more. So for me, I shared it with my doctor, so she knows that I'm getting that exercise. And I shared that with my husband because he helps to remind me when I'm not using my personal medicine with permission. He's allowed to say, hey, you haven't gone for a walk lately, so it's really important. So this is just a really brief example of what my personal medicine looks like. Personal medicine grows and changes over time. There was a period of time a couple of years ago when I had surgery on my foot and I couldn't walk. I wasn't allowed to walk for a few months, and it about killed me because I was so used to getting out of the house and getting away from things and being able to clear my head. And I had to make adjustments. I had to find some other things that would help me to unwind and help me to clear my head and help me to feel less anxious. And so personal medicine is dynamic, and it changes, and as we change and as we grow, and we're always working on adding more personal medicine. This is just one of my many personal medicines.
Who can become a certified personal medicine professional, and what are those requirements?
So anybody can become a certified personal medicine coach. We don't have any requirements. We've got folks who are people living their lives in recovery. We have peer supporters, we have clinicians, we have doctors, we have therapists. We've had dietitians and occupational therapists. So there is no requirement to becoming a certified personal medicine coach other than a desire to learn and want to help people.
Awesome.
We should mention that there's a very rigorous course.
Yeah.
You might want to say a word about that, Missy.
Yes, so we are going to be working with the folks at Mercy Care to train a bunch of their staff, and they're going to work, and I don't know if anybody from Mercy Care wants to elaborate on that more, but we'll be doing some training with them so that they can help train folks all over. But it is an 11-week course. It's a combination of e-learning and live coaching calls to really digest the content. There's practice involved. There's reflecting and comments. There's a final exam. So there is quite a bit of work that goes into it, but it's all really good work and really powerful work.
So this is Christy. I'm the Adult System of Care Administrator with Mercy Care, and we're going to be implementing, as Missy said, personal medicine in Arizona for our ACC REBA members, and we are super excited about it. I read about the program last year, so it's actually been a whole year that we've been planning this, so this is our kickoff. So we plan to train over 300 staff at the health homes within the next year. Our first cohort of training starts in August. It's 11 weeks, and then we're doing a train the trainer. So each of our health home providers will have probably like 2 trainers at each agency, and then Mercy Care will have a trainer as well. But we're like extremely ecstatic about this. I think it's going to make such a profound difference in our service delivery system. And then we're going to be including a personal medicine goal in the ISD as well, which I think will just be huge. So, any questions?
Is there any other way to get the course besides through Mercy Care? Marta, Mercy Care, please consider extending this course to us. So not sure what she's meaning by that.
I can elaborate. Two-set care homes. So we're calling what was formerly called the SMI clinics health homes. Yes. SMI clinics is like a stigmatizing term, you know. I mean, it's really where someone should go to get healthy. So so we're revamping that. And then and then Pat put in the chat. Yeah. So this is Pat and her team's total evidence-based practice. We're doing it because we feel like it could be, we feel like it is going to be very impactful in the system. But to Pat's point in the chat, they do independent cohorts, and you guys can sign up with them. And then the Common Ground website has tons and tons of information on personal medicine.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. And thank you, Missy. Any additional questions or anything that you want to add, Missy, or?
No, just, I really do encourage you all. And for those of you who, will be going through the CPMC training in the future, discovering your own personal medicine is one of the most important things. And so, this is not just a tool that you use with folks you're serving. We really want you all to go through the worksheet and explore and discover your own personal medicine, because there is power in that, right? So if I can make that connection with somebody I'm supporting, and while I'm talking with them about personal medicine, I can say, hey, I have personal medicine too. We're all humans. We all can meet on this common ground of our shared humanity. And so a lot of times, unless you're a peer staff, a lot of clinical staff or case management staff don't always feel like they can make that lived experience connection with folks. But with personal medicine, you can. We all have challenges, regardless of a diagnosis or not. We all live through these challenges, and we all have personal medicine to help us through them. So I can't say enough about spending some time using the worksheet and reflecting for yourself to discover your personal medicine and make it as powerful as possible.
Thank you so much. Laura, we're going to pass it on off to you.
Hey, Missy, before we switch over, I'm wondering if you could say something about the next workshop, because I don't want people to think that personal medicine is, confined just to this workshop, because it expands significantly beyond that.
Yeah, so there's so many pieces of it, and for those of you who will go through the CPMC course, I mean, we've got the worksheet is one piece of it. We've got personal medicine cards, which I'm going to highlight on part 2 of our workshops that are Wednesday and Thursday. I think Thursday is for the providers, and we'll go into the personal medicine cards, which are truly awesome tool to really help folks discover and find some new personal medicine that can help them through challenges. We also have personal medicine guides that are like workbook style guides that help folks really explore a specific challenge they may have and going through that challenge and working through it. So yes, personal medicine is a lot of stuff. It's a really simple concept, but through the CPMC course, you really learn how to dive deeply. And I've worked with, like I said, I've worked with people who've used personal medicine in their work for years, and then came into the CPMC course, and just their understanding of personal medicine and coaching people through their challenges and how to discover and use their personal medicine has amplified their practice in so many ways.
Thank you so much.
And Sujata, we'll get to you. We're just gonna go through these slides really quickly, and then at the end, if we have time, we'll be able to get to you. All right. So the future of personal medicine. So I know Christy just announced this, but we're very pleased that Pat Deegan's personal medicine coaching evidence-based practice is a kickoff to our initiative within the REBA. And Christy talked about this. It's going to start in August, and by the end of 2023, we hope to have over 300 staff trained, as well as adding the personal medicine goal to the ISPs. Follow us on our social media, and that information is also included in the chat. And I think that is it. So if there's anybody else that has any final questions, I think we have about 4 minutes left.
So I had a question for Ms. Deegan. I was wondering, with certification training that people would go through for personal medicine, have you come across any liability issues if a person is not in the mental health profession?
No, we've not come across liability issues.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's one more question as well. Is there any outcomes data on the effects of personal medicine?
Yes, we reviewed the main outcomes data during the presentation, essentially that when personal medicine is introduced and discovered and used by individuals, use tends to increase over time, and that people become activated as measured by the patient activation measure in their own recovery, and that in turn results in better overall health outcomes. We also have cohort-specific data. When a group comes in, they rate their knowledge, skills, and confidence in relation to, for instance, working with a person who's hearing distressing voices, or working with a person who is experienced or challenged by self-harm, or someone who's challenged by anxiety. And people rate their confidence in working with individuals with these different challenges before the course begins and then post after the course. And the gains are significant. So, yeah, there's good data.
I just put the link to our website again in the chat. And if you head over to there, we actually do have a paper reviewing the outcomes. So if there's any data people out there who want to look at the data, that information is there as well. And in a lot of the questions you have about the course and what the process is and what it looks like.
Awesome. And Missy, I noticed that you put Pat is on social media, so she's got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. So woohoo! So I'm gonna join some of that too. I like TikTok, so I'm gonna see what you got out there.
I dance on TikTok. I mean, it's amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Pat reluctantly joined TikTok, and now she's got all these followers.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. That's our session for the afternoon, but hopefully we'll see some of you guys this evening and throughout the rest of the week at the future sessions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.